reports claim that he gave you chlamydia?
Yes, he was my only sexual partner, and I was a virgin, so who could have given it to me? A ghost?
Yeah.
And I literally told him that too. I was like, so who gave it to me? A ghost? At the beginning, I had denied that he gave it to me to him because I was so afraid of how he reacted every time before that when I would bring up STD.
So y'all know I've come to terms that I don't know who gave me AIDS or HIV, right? So today, I got a message about an interview that I should watch. And this interview happened to include a celebrity man that this man has been with me and everybody else doing the same thing with everybody else.
Have you ever watched a story unfold in real time and wondered whether you were witnessing the collapse of a public image or the beginning of a much bigger mystery? Sometimes the headlines tell only a fraction of the story. The internet fills in the rest with theories, rumors, and speculation, creating a storm where facts and fiction become almost impossible to separate. That's exactly what's happening right now. For months, one of the entertainment industry's biggest names has remained at the center of an ever-growing wave of lawsuits, investigations, resurfaced interviews, and endless online discussions. Every new court filing seems to inspire another viral theory. Every old podcast clip suddenly takes on new meaning. And every social media post sends millions of people searching for answers that nobody seems able to fully provide. But here's where things become even more complicated. Alongside the official legal proceedings, another deeply personal story has captured people's attention. A woman known online as Gena, whose emotional account of battling a devastating illness has sparked countless discussions across social media. Her story isn't just about celebrity culture. It's about trust, heartbreak, unanswered questions, and the painful reality of living with uncertainty. Before we go any further, it's important to make one thing absolutely clear. Some of what you'll hear today comes from documented interviews, public statements, and legal filings. Other parts involve allegations, rumors, and online speculation that have not been verified. Distinguishing between those is essential, because in stories this complex separating fact from assumption can be just as important as the story itself. So how did these seemingly separate narratives become connected in the public's mind? To understand that, we have to go back to where Gena's story first began, not in a courtroom, but with a simple social media video. When she first opened up online, viewers immediately noticed something was different. She wasn't trying to create drama or chase headlines. Instead, she spoke with a level of honesty that resonated with thousands of people who had been wondering why she had disappeared from public view. For months, followers had noticed fewer posts, long absences, and visible changes in her appearance. Naturally, speculation began. Some assumed she was taking a break from social media. Others believed she was focusing on her personal life. The truth, according to Gena, was far more serious. She revealed that she had been spending an enormous amount of time in hospitals after doctors diagnosed her with a severe medical condition. She described the experience as one of the darkest periods of her life, explaining that what looked normal from the outside had become an exhausting daily battle behind closed doors. According to her account, the symptoms didn't appear overnight. Instead, they slowly became impossible to ignore. Persistent fevers, extreme fatigue, unexpected weight loss, moments of dizziness, repeated hospital visits, doctors searching for answers, but initially treating her for entirely different illnesses. Like many people facing difficult medical conditions, she explained that the path toward a diagnosis wasn't straightforward. Each appointment seemed to raise more questions than answers. Every test that came back inconclusive added another layer of uncertainty. By the time specialists finally identified the underlying condition, she claimed the illness had already taken a devastating toll on her body. She spoke about losing a dramatic amount of weight. She described struggling with severe muscle weakness. Even walking became difficult. One of the most emotional moments came when she explained that she had partially lost vision in one eye, a consequence she never imagined she would have to face. For many viewers, this wasn't celebrity gossip. It was simply a heartbreaking human story. Thousands flooded her comment sections with encouragement, prayers, and messages of support from people facing similar health battles. But as often happens on the internet, sympathy was quickly followed by curiosity. People naturally wanted to know what had happened. How had someone so young become this sick? Had doctors explained where the illness came from? Did she know who had transmitted it? Initially, Gena admitted she didn't know. At least, not with certainty. That uncertainty became one of the most painful parts of her journey. Imagine living every day wondering not only how your life changed so dramatically, but also asking yourself whether it could have been prevented. Whether someone knew something they never told you. Whether warning signs had been ignored. Those questions lingered. And for a long time, there weren't any clear answers. Months later, however, the conversation changed. During another public discussion, Gena explained that over time she had become convinced she knew who may have transmitted the virus to her. According to her own statements, this wasn't a stranger. It was someone she had known for years. Someone she had trusted. Someone she cared deeply about. Those comments immediately sparked enormous attention online. Almost overnight, social media users began trying to identify the individual she was referring to. Names started appearing across platforms. Old interviews resurfaced. Videos were clipped out of context. Entire timelines were created by internet detectives attempting to connect unrelated events. But despite the avalanche of speculation, one fact remained unchanged. Gena herself declined to publicly identify anyone without what she considered definitive proof. She indicated that she preferred to address the matter through legal channels rather than social media accusations. That distinction often disappeared as the story spread online. Within days, countless content creators began producing videos presenting theories as though they were established facts. Some viewers accepted those narratives immediately. Others urged caution. After all, speculation, even when repeated millions of times, doesn't automatically become evidence. Still, the public fascination continued growing. People weren't only interested in Gena's health anymore. They started looking into her past. Where had she been before becoming known online? How had she entered celebrity circles? What experiences had shaped her life? According to interviews and public statements, Gena previously described experiencing homelessness while living in New York. She spoke about surviving incredibly difficult circumstances, trying to rebuild her life while navigating situations few people could imagine. For many viewers, that background added another emotional layer to her story. It suggested someone who had already overcome extraordinary hardships before facing a devastating medical diagnosis. But others interpreted her past differently. Online communities began constructing elaborate theories, suggesting that vulnerable periods in her life may have brought her into contact with influential people in the entertainment industry. It's important to emphasize that these theories were never officially confirmed. Nevertheless, they spread rapidly. One viral post became another. One podcast referenced another interview. One YouTube video inspired 20 more. Before long, people weren't simply discussing Gena anymore. They were discussing celebrity culture itself. Questions started emerging that extended far beyond one individual's experience. How much do fans really know about the private lives of celebrities? How many stories remain hidden because those involved fear speaking publicly? How often does social media blur the line between documented evidence and compelling storytelling? Those questions became even louder as another name dominated headlines: Sean Diddy Combs. Long before recent legal developments, Diddy had built a reputation as one of the most influential figures in music and entertainment. His career spanned decades. He helped launch successful artists. He built businesses. He created an image associated with luxury, influence, and exclusive access. His parties became legendary within entertainment circles. For years, attending one of those events was viewed as a symbol of status. Celebrities, athletes, executives, musicians, actors, countless recognizable faces reportedly attended these gatherings over the years. At the time, they were often portrayed as glamorous celebrations where the entertainment industry's biggest names came together. But perspectives can change dramatically. As lawsuits and investigations involving Diddy entered public view, conversations surrounding those parties changed almost overnight. People began revisiting old interviews. Former guests were asked new questions. Archived clips suddenly received millions of new views. Moments that once seemed insignificant were now analyzed frame by frame. This phenomenon isn't unique to one case. Whenever a major public figure becomes involved in legal controversy, people naturally revisit the past, searching for clues they believe were overlooked. Sometimes those clues lead to meaningful discoveries. Other times, they simply reinforce confirmation bias, encouraging people to interpret ordinary events through an entirely different lens. That's exactly what happened here. Social media exploded with videos claiming to reveal hidden truths. Some creators insisted everything was finally making sense. Others warned audiences not to confuse internet speculation with verified evidence. Meanwhile, official legal proceedings continued following their own timeline, a pace far slower than the non-stop cycle of online commentary. Court documents, attorney statements, motions, hearings, witnesses, evidence. These are the tools used inside a courtroom. Online, however, the rules are very different. Algorithms reward speed. Emotion spreads faster than nuance. And uncertainty often creates more engagement than certainty ever could. As a result, millions of people found themselves trying to piece together an enormous puzzle using fragments collected from interviews, podcasts, lawsuits, anonymous posts, and decades-old media clips. The challenge: not every puzzle piece actually belonged to the same picture. Yet many viewers became convinced they did. That growing divide between documented facts and viral theories would soon become one of the defining features of this entire controversy. And just when the public thought they had identified the major questions surrounding the case, another wave of resurfaced interviews and emotional personal accounts would send the conversation in an entirely new direction, raising even more questions than answers. As the conversation grew louder, something unexpected began to happen. People stopped looking at individual headlines and started connecting them together. A lawsuit here, an interview there, a decades-old podcast clip, a social media confession, a resurfaced television appearance. On their own, each piece seemed incomplete, but together, many believed they were beginning to reveal a much larger picture. Whether those connections were accurate or simply the product of hindsight became one of the biggest debates surrounding the entire story. One thing was undeniable, though. The internet had become obsessed with finding answers. Every day, new videos appeared claiming to expose hidden truths. Some creators promised secret evidence. Others insisted they had insider information. Timelines were constantly updated as viewers tried to organize years of events into a single narrative. But while millions of people focused on rumors, the legal process continued moving at its own deliberate pace. Courtrooms don't operate on viral moments. They rely on evidence. Witness testimony, documents, cross-examinations, facts that can be challenged and verified. That difference between the courtroom and social media quickly became impossible to ignore. Online, people often reached conclusions within minutes. In court, those same questions could take months, or even years, to resolve. Yet despite those differences, public interest only continued to grow. One reason was the growing number of older interviews resurfacing across social media. Some had originally attracted little attention when they were first released. Others had been forgotten almost entirely. Now they were being watched millions of times by audiences searching for clues they believed had been overlooked. Among the names that repeatedly entered the conversation was comedian Katt Williams. For years, Williams had been known for speaking openly about the entertainment industry. His interviews often challenged powerful figures and questioned how influence operated behind closed doors. At the time many of those comments were made, reactions were mixed. Some viewers believed he was simply being provocative. Others argued that he was sharing uncomfortable observations based on his own experiences. Years later, as new legal developments unfolded involving other public figures, clips from those interviews began circulating again. People asked a simple question: did those older comments deserve another look? Supporters believed they did. Critics responded with an equally important point. Even if someone makes a statement years before a controversy unfolds, that alone doesn't prove every claim is accurate. Old interviews can provide context. They cannot replace evidence. Still, the renewed attention placed Williams back at the center of countless online discussions. In one resurfaced interview, he explained that he had intentionally avoided certain exclusive gatherings within the entertainment industry because he wanted to remain true to his own personal values. Those remarks quickly spread across social media. Some viewers interpreted them as confirmation of long-standing rumors. Others viewed them simply as one person's opinion about an industry he had worked in for decades. Again, interpretation depended largely on the audience. This pattern repeated itself over and over. One interview would surface. Millions would watch. Thousands of videos would analyze every sentence. Then another interview would appear. Each new clip seemed to encourage even more speculation. As the internet searched for patterns, another controversial figure entered the conversation: singer Jaguar Wright. Over the years, Wright had made numerous public claims regarding the music industry and several well-known celebrities. Her interviews frequently generated headlines because of the serious nature of the allegations she discussed. It's important to note that many of her claims have never been independently verified. Nevertheless, her interviews continued to spread rapidly online, particularly as public interest surrounding the broader entertainment industry increased. Supporters argued that Wright had been speaking about these issues long before they became mainstream news. Skeptics argued that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Both perspectives fueled even more debate. For many viewers, the fascination wasn't necessarily about proving individual allegations. It was about understanding whether multiple people from different backgrounds had independently described similar environments within the entertainment industry. That possibility alone kept audiences watching. Every resurfaced interview seemed to add another layer to an already complicated story. Meanwhile, Gena continued sharing pieces of her own personal experience. In emotional interviews, she described not only the physical impact of her illness, but also the psychological burden that came with it. One question haunted her repeatedly: what if someone had known? What if important information had been withheld? She admitted there were days when she tried not to think about it at all. Not because the questions disappeared, but because constantly searching for answers became emotionally exhausting. Anyone who has experienced betrayal, or even suspected betrayal, understands how painful uncertainty can be. Sometimes, not knowing becomes its own kind of suffering. You replay conversations. You remember details differently. You wonder whether warning signs were there all along. And eventually, you begin questioning your own judgment. Those emotions resonated with many people watching her interviews. Regardless of where viewers stood on the surrounding speculation, few could ignore the genuine emotion behind her words. She wasn't speaking like someone trying to entertain an audience. She sounded like someone trying to make sense of a chapter of her life that still hadn't given her clear answers. That emotional authenticity became one of the reasons her story continued spreading online. But as often happens on social media, empathy and sensationalism began existing side by side. Meaningful conversations about health awareness became mixed with celebrity gossip. Medical discussions became overshadowed by theories about famous individuals. Important messages about testing, communication, and responsibility sometimes disappeared beneath an avalanche of speculation. This raised another important issue. How quickly can social media transform a personal health story into worldwide entertainment? The answer, apparently, is very quickly. Algorithms reward attention. Attention often favors controversy. And controversy spreads faster than careful reporting. That's why legal experts repeatedly encouraged audiences to distinguish between verified developments and internet theories. Public opinion can change overnight. Evidence usually takes much longer. Those reminders became increasingly necessary because another wave of lawsuits and public allegations involving different individuals soon entered the headlines. Each new filing generated fresh discussions. Each procedural update inspired countless reaction videos. Commentators debated what the documents might mean. Supporters and critics interpreted the same information in completely different ways. For many casual observers, simply keeping track of events became difficult. There were so many overlapping narratives that people sometimes confused allegations from separate cases, treating them as though they were directly connected. That confusion highlighted one of the greatest challenges surrounding high-profile legal controversies. Not every rumor relates to every case. Not every interview supports every allegation. Not every viral theory survives careful examination. Yet once enough stories begin circulating simultaneously, many audiences naturally start connecting them. Sometimes correctly, sometimes not. Journalists covering the proceedings faced a difficult task. Rather than chasing every trending hashtag, they attempted to reconstruct events using documented timelines. Court filings, public records, attorney statements, official interviews. Their objective wasn't to confirm internet speculation. It was to establish what could actually be verified. That distinction became increasingly valuable as more creators entered the conversation. Some focused almost exclusively on official documentation. Others built narratives primarily around podcasts, archived interviews, and anonymous sources. The result was an internet filled with competing versions of the same story. Depending on which creator someone watched first, they often walked away with completely different conclusions. One viewer might believe the legal filings represented the most reliable source of information. Another might argue that years of interviews provided important context missing from court documents. Both groups believed they were following the truth. Yet they often relied on very different standards for evaluating information. Perhaps that's one of the most fascinating aspects of modern media. Access to information has never been greater, but neither has the challenge of determining which information deserves trust. As weeks passed, another realization slowly emerged. This story was no longer just about individual celebrities. It had become a conversation about influence, power, reputation, media, public perception, and the extraordinary speed at which narratives can evolve in the digital age. Entire reputations could shift within hours. Old headlines suddenly felt relevant again. Forgotten interviews returned to the spotlight. Public figures found themselves answering questions about comments they had made years earlier. Whether fairly or unfairly, the past was being examined through the lens of the present. That process created enormous pressure, not only for the individuals directly involved, but also for audiences trying to understand what was actually happening. Perhaps the most responsible approach was also the least satisfying. Wait. Observe. Follow verified developments. Allow evidence, not emotion, to guide conclusions. Yet patience is rarely rewarded on social media. People want immediate answers, definitive conclusions, simple explanations. Real life almost never works that way, especially when multiple investigations, lawsuits, interviews, and public statements unfold simultaneously. As attention continued shifting toward upcoming legal proceedings, one question became impossible to ignore. When witnesses finally began speaking under oath, would their testimony confirm years of speculation? Or would it completely reshape the story everyone thought they already understood?